Diolch agus céad míle failte. Welcome to the second podcast of the New Order of Druids. I wanted to start this podcast by thanking everyone who contacted us and gave us ideas on what to do for the podcast. I hope you keep these ideas coming because we're very interested in what you have to say. A large majority of the people who contacted us wanted to know about the Celtic Year first, so this is where we're going to start. In this podcast, we'll be talking about the whole Celtic Year, and then in the coming months, we'll be talking about each feast as it comes up. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to know is that the Celtic Year was not at first regulated by solstices and equinoxes. Instead, it was governed by agriculture or with the seasons. Later on, the year was a lunar one, and there is some evidence of attempts to synchronize lunar and solar times. But time was mainly measured by the moon. So, h264 was the night before Samhain, not the night following it. In early times, the year had 2, maybe 3 divisions, according to pastoral or agricultural life. Later, it was divided into 4 divisions, and the year started with Samhain and the winter division. Now, if you look at the Irish texts, which seem to be corroborated with the Gaulish calendar of Caligny, the year is divided in 2 halves, the winter, or Givre, and the summer, which is Saura. Now let's take the winter half. The winter half is also divided into two sections. You have Givre, which begins with the festival of Samhain, and then you have Ira, which begins with the festival of Imbolc. The summer half, or Saura, also has two divisions. It starts with Saura at the beginning of Beltane, and the second half would start with Fovra, and it is heralded by the festival of Lunasa. The leftover festivals were not added to the Celtic calendar until the 1900s. Now let's talk about the 4 festivals separately. Let's start with Samhain. Samhain etymologically means the end of summer, or put in another way, the beginning of winter. Samhain beginning the Celtic year was an important social and religious occasion. Samhain may be regarded as, in origin, an old pastoral and agricultural festival, which in time came to be looked upon as affording assistance to the powers of growth in their conflict with the powers of blight. Irish literature gives us the most delighted insight into Samhain. It is the end of the old year and the beginning of the new one. It was considered a liminal time between the 2 years, and as such, it was a dangerous time. The dangerous spirits of the dead are free to roam at this time. The myth connected to this time says that this time is the time when the god Dagda and a female goddess, usually the Morrigan, came together. Through their intercourse, the well-being of the tribe and the fertility of all their enterprises were secured. In some versions of the myth, the goddess was an old hag who was revitalized by the intercourse. Samhain is the time of year when gods visit men. This was the time when Cuchulainn had encountered the otherworld ladies. It was at this time that the swan girl, Caer, assumed her swan form and was taken by Angus, the god of love, who was in love with her. The festival of Samhain was the night on which the goblin Elin annually burned down Tara until he was killed by Finn. Usually on this day, new fire is brought into every house from the sacred bonfire. This bonfire was probably kindled from the need fire by the friction of pieces of wood. This way, its purity is preserved. This purity is needed for a beginnings ritual. The putting out of the old fires probably symbolized getting rid of evil with the old year. This was an important festival and everyone had to attend, or lose things like reason, tremulous, and tombs. Political, economical, and religious matters were discussed, and feasts were held usually with pork and wine. Divination and forecasting for the coming year usually took place at this time. At this time, also, the slaughtering of animals for food during the winter takes place. It also has religious connotations the same way it did with the Teutons, as the animals were offered to the gods. Keating speaks of a druid sacrifice in the bonfire, whether of man or beast is not specified. Probably the victim, like the scapegoat, was laden with accumulated evils of the year. Winter and spring in many people's minds are associated with death and resurrection, so Samhain is a day to remember one's ancestors, to celebrate the immortality of the soul, the dead and the gods, or to be placated to keep the darkness at bay. This would be the time to take stock of the last year, make up new resolutions, and tie up loose ends. This would also be the time when the storytelling tradition would start again by the elders of the family. Children born on this day were said to have the second sight and were able to communicate with the supernatural. The word Imbolc is derived from the Celtic word Omilk, and it means ewe's milk. It is one of the festivals mentioned in insular records of Ireland, as well as mentioned in the Gaulish calendar of Caligny. This feast was said to be linked to the Irish goddess Bridget. This festival usually takes place 3 months after the festival of Samhain. Imbolc is said to have most likely signified the middle to end of the winter. It was said to be a purification festival. Not a lot is known about the components of Imbolc, because it was mostly obscured by the Christians who were troubled by the mention of the goddess Bridget, who later appeared as an abbess of Kildare. Imbolc seems to present itself as having been much of less important than Samhain. It didn't concern either the military class or the king, and it was perhaps a more intimate and local affair. It is on this night, the night before Imbolc, that people in Ireland used to leave offerings for the goddess Bridget for when she came around to bless the houses. Later in Christian times, that turned into an offering of rush mats and bread to make Saint Bridget welcome. In the Highlands of Scotland, the vegetation is welcomed on this day. The whole day is centered on getting Bridget's blessings, which were so important for fertility and safe births. Girls made corn dollies and dressed them with flowers and greenery. Now let's talk about Beltane. This festival was held on the first day of May in Ireland and Scotland, celebrating the beginning of summer and open pasturing. Beltane is first mentioned in the glossary attributed to Cormac, Bishop of Cashel and King of Munster, who was killed in 908. Cormac describes how cattle were driven between 2 bonfires on Beltane as magical means of protecting them from disease before they were led into summer pastures, a custom still observed in Ireland in the 19th century. Beltane festival served as an opening to life and light. Not a lot is known about the rituals observed in Beltane. It was believed to be a sacerdotal festival, and the Druids were thought to be in honor there. The folk survival of this festival shows it to be a promotion of fertility. The idea that powers of growth had successfully combated those of blight may have been ritually represented. Bonfires were kindled in sympathetic magic to encourage the sun's warmth to penetrate the earth. The 1st of August, coming midway between Beltane and Samhain, was an important festival among the Celts. The name of Lunasa still survives in Irish as Lunasad, in Scottish Gaelic as Lunas Dal or Lunas Din, and in Manx as La Lunis. Lunasad etymologically means the festival of Lu. Traditionally, the festivals were of a month's duration, beginning on 15th of July and ending on 15th of August. Assemblies at convenient centers were held on this day. It was not only for a religious purpose, but also for commerce and pleasure. All Ireland met at Tultee, just as all Gaul met at Lugdunum, or Lugstown, or Lyons, in honor of Augustus, though the feasts there had formerly been in honor of the god Lugus. The festival consisted of various games and especially of plenary assemblies. Above all else, it seems that Lunasa was a royal festival at which the king presided over horse races and poetic competitions, but one where there was no military games or ritual deaths. this was a brief look at the Celtic Year. To read more on the festivals, please go to our podcast page and look at the list of books I have written up for you. This is mainly where I got most of my information, plus a little bit more. Now, as I said in the beginning of the podcast, please keep your ideas coming in. We're really interested in everything you have to say, and we'd like to bring you what you want to hear, not what we think you want to hear. So please keep the emails coming. So from me, Maya, and the New Order of Druids, Slán go fóill!